Welcome back to Retro Wednesday at the Tidarium Hangar. This is Mike, and today I'm going to talk to you about the dark side of AFA grading your figures. There's nothing against the company AFA. There's multiple different grading companies. This is really just talking about grading. I understand why people out there do grade their figures, so I'm going to talk about the pluses, and then I'm going to talk about the minuses, which are the dark side. I personally have never AFA graded a figure. I do have about 9 figures. I got in a lot that were already previously AFA graded, so I'm going to talk about all this coming up. So getting into the positives or the pluses before we get into the dark side of AFA grading. The main reason that I see people grade their figures is because they want to know that if they're spending a lot of money on the high end, they're getting an authentic item and not a reproduction. There's a lot of really good fakes out there, a lot of really good reproductions, from the card backs to the bubbles to the figures and the weapons and accessories and all of that. So if you really want to know that your figure is truly authentic, then you send it into these professionals, and these professionals grade your figures. So knowing it's original, in my opinion, is the #1 reason that you want to get them graded. And then, in my opinion, the second reason, the #2 reason, is because you want to have your collection protected. So theoretically, once you get your figure AFA graded, it is protected forever in this acrylic case, and it should not get any worse than this grade. That's actually not true, but a lot of people think this. Like, hey, I've got this graded, and it's an AFA 85, it's an AFA 85 forever. Or if it's an AFA 50, it's an AFA 50 forever. So when people get their stuff graded, then it's a same grade forever. And we're going to talk about it because that's actually not true, but a lot of people feel that way. And lastly, in my opinion, the last thing is the score. Yeah, most people live and die by that grade, live and die by that score. But me personally, I would think the score is the last thing. Behind knowing it's original and having it protected forever, then there's the score. And the score itself can vary from one grader to another, one grading company to another. And so for this, it kind of bothers me about the scoring that it can be slightly different. Now, I don't think it's going to be so different that you go from an 85 to a 50. I don't think that variation, or even an 85 to a 70. Now, an 80 to an 85 or an 85 to a 90, it is very much so quite possible for that to happen, but it's not as likely. More or less, these are decent graded items. The graders give the same items, the same scores, more or less. It has been tested a couple times, and there is a bit of variation. So the first issue on my list here for the dark side of AFA grading is, let's say you send in a figure that's a $100 figure. So you mail in your $100 figure, and you spend your $50. You're adding cost to that figure. Whether that figure is going to be worth a whole lot more or not, you're adding cost to that figure. No matter what the rating is, you're adding cost to that figure. So a $100 figure, you no longer have the option to buy that figure for $100. Now, when somebody spends $50 plus the shipping and the $15 shipping, so it's $65, they're not going to ask $165. More or less, whoever's grading it's grading it so they can sell it. The vast majority of people that I see that grade lots of figures, the majority of the figures that get graded are for resellers that are reselling them trying to make more money. If they're going to go through the trouble of grading them, then they want a lot more money. So what I see is $165 investment into a figure, they want to sell it for $300 or $400. So it really takes away that lower end market. The lower end market of people that want carded figures, or even the lower end market of people that want loose figures, and it's less and less available to the average collector that doesn't want to go high end, $10,000 a figure. So I really don't like that, because I don't want to buy them AFA graded. The way I look at it, if they've been AFA graded and then the people are starting to ask $300, $400, $500 for a $100 figure, it counts me completely out. And if it counts me completely out, I'm sure it counts a large majority of vintage Star Wars collectors out, and other toy lines also. But I just really don't want to pay for someone to grade it and put it in a case. That's an issue to me. So the next issue I have is that I display the vast majority of my collection in star cases. I got star cases for $2 a star case. I bought a case of star cases, and they averaged out to even under $2 per case for me, so I could display hundreds of figures for a reasonable amount of price. So I think it cost me $200 to get 100. So that wasn't really a big deal cost-wise. I actually researched AFA when I was thinking about the cases because I like the acrylic case. But the problem for me is that now they don't match. The 9 figures that I have that are AFA rated don't match the rest of my collection. And I don't want to spend 10,000 bucks AFA rating the rest of my collection to make a match. And I don't want to spend about 5,000 buying acrylic cases and putting them in there, or however much it would cost me to get secondary acrylic cases made so that they all match. I know if you collect, you want your collection to look good. You want it to be represented in the best light, and you want it to match and to look like it all fits in. And when you have a handful of them that are AFA graded and the vast majority are in star cases, it doesn't match and it doesn't look as good as if they were all in the same similar type of case. So my next issue with AFA grading is the running change that was made. Now, AFA, long time ago in the early days of grading, would put the score and all of the information right above the card, made a much larger case, and for that, those people that get the old type case really would rather have the new style case, or vice versa, to tell you the truth. If you got your entire collection graded at one time, you're sitting with all of these old style cases, and then now you start collecting going forward and getting AFA graded. You get them AFA graded in this new style case. Now, I don't know. Maybe it's possible to get the old style case still, but I do know that AFA offers the option for you to mail in your figure and get it recased into the modern style case. Now, with that adds another expense, which I don't know exactly what that is. Maybe it's still 50, maybe it's only 30, I don't know. But it's still an additional cost that I'm not willing to spend, I'm not willing to pay. But I know that I've got both of these types of figures and both of these styles of cases, and they don't match, and you can't put them on a shelf side by side and make them look good. So my next issue with AFAing figures comes with loose figures. When you AFA rate a loose figure, to me, it makes really no sense. Now, obviously, you're going to have somebody else looking at your collection and saying, hey, look at mine and tell me if it's as good as I think it is. I think it's a 90. Oh, crud, you think it's only a 70. They rate the paint and they rate the overall condition of the figure and all of that. But to me, I just think that it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. And if I have a loose figure, it's loose. I can display it as a loose figure in a display. I would much rather have my figures displayed in a display so I can enjoy them than sitting in an acrylic case. I do enjoy my figures carded. If they're carded, I want to leave them carded, and I can enjoy them that way. But if they're loose, I want them to intermingle with each other and look like a scene of some sort, if that's at all possible. Now, you can't talk about AFA grading loose figures without talking about the U grade. The U grade is a very controversial topic because people would send in figures that were carded, and the cards weren't going to get you an AFA 85 or above. So they assumed they'd get an 80 or below on the card, and they'd ask for the U grade. AFA has since stopped doing U grades because the community backlash was so huge that they stopped doing this U grade, which makes U graded figures from back in the day very expensive, even more sought after than the carded counterpart, which blows my mind because I'd much rather have a carded figure. Now, I had actually bought a handful of card backs that were professionally cut open, and I couldn't understand why there were card backs on the market that were professionally cut open. At the time, there were thousands available for sale, and I picked up the ones I needed to finish my carded collection that I could display my figure in sort of a card back with a bubble in it, and I was picking them up for like $5 a piece. But then it kind of dawned on me, like, where did this come from? And I found out it was from the U grading. And the last issue I want to talk about, the Darkside of AFA grading, and it is the fact that a lot of people think that they're going to get their figure graded, it's going to stay in perfect condition forever, or the same grade forever, and there are issues. Figure can fall out of the bubble, like Toy Polloi had pointed out. So if you are interested in more information on grading your figures and stuff, Toy Polloi does a great job with these videos, so I would suggest you go to his channel. But he did point out here in this picture that the figure fell through the bubble right there, and it's AFA graded, but he's slipped through the bubble. Somebody dropped it, it deteriorated, or something. They also I've seen pictures, but I couldn't find any of figures that have faded or yellowed, you know, on the card, and they would not have gotten the same score if you sent it in again. There's no way to get the same score because it has been damaged. This is a big concern for G.I. Joe collectors that collect carded. The O-rings could fail on you at any time. Yes, you can keep them in perfect temperature, perfect climate-controlled environment. They will last longer. But at any time, you could lose one of those O-rings out of nowhere. So that's an issue that's always a concern. And so if you AFA rate it, you might have just wasted all your money if something like this happens. So let me know what you think about AFA rating. What side of the fence are you on? Do you like to get your stuff AFA rated? Would you rather have more figures and more stuff? And would you rather display your loose stuff? Like and subscribe. Titanium Hanger out.